Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Resident Evil Code Veronica X. In the last part, we continued exploring the palace and ended up at the Ashford estate on the far side of the base. But now that we found a silver key over there, we can explore a little bit more of the main palace that we couldn't before. Again, like I brought up earlier, this game really is just built of backtracking between smaller sub-areas, which I really want to say this is the only Resident Evil that does it this way, because even, usually in like Resident Evil 2, 1, or 3, even if you do backtrack in their remakes or otherwise, it's usually just for a quick one item, and then you go to a completely new area. Like Resident Evil 2, you do the RPD at first, then you end up in the underground area, then you end up in the main RPD again, then you leave the RPD period. Resident Evil 3, you explore the town, but then you get further and further into the town, approaching the park, and you never really go back to the prior areas. Resident Evil 1's the only one that had any real full backtracking to begin with. Like, I saw a really good tweet the other day that compared the original 3 games as Resident Evil 1 is the best out of the original trilogy for exploration, Resident Evil 2 has the best action and story pacing, and Resident Evil 3 has the best action survival hybrid mechanics. And barring some of my own personal tastes on those games, I think that's a pretty good way to sum up all 3. Code Veronica tries to be, it feels like, all 3 at once in some regards, and it just doesn't really end up playing off right, I feel. Also, welcome to the casino. There's a key item we can grab here later on after we've gotten a different item, but I'm mostly here to get the ammo that is here for now, because otherwise if I try to get all that at once later on, I probably won't have the inventory space for it. Our main goal for right now is to head back to the prison, because we found that hemostatic medicine a few parts back, and those who've watched since the start of the game, or investigated the first room of the game, will probably realize where that immediately goes. With that said, I should note, heading back to the prison proper is required. Doing the hemostatic side quest is just that, it's a side quest. It's not required to beat the game. In fact, not using the hemostatic medicine on the guy who freed us at the start of the game changes a cutscene later on even. I'm not showing off both variants of the cutscene because it would have required me to play a surprising amount of the game twice, and I would rather not in this particular case because I don't like this game enough to do that, honestly. But it is worth noting that it is completely optional. If I were to compare to a different Resident Evil event, it's like saving Richard from the Jan's poison in Resident Evil Remake, in particular, in terms of how it rewards you for anything. With that, though, let's go use the silver key here in the palace, because that is our primary goal for right now. And thankfully, we don't even have to deal with the zombies this time around. We can just head right across the hall. Have the M100Ps for this room, by the way, because if I recall, there are 2 Bandersnatches just wandering around in here. And there you can see me aiming at both at once. Like I mentioned when we were doing that section with Steve earlier on, if you're aiming at 2 enemies at once and you don't want to, you can just press the L button again, or whatever the equivalent is depending on the controller you're playing on, and it will just swap to aiming at 1 with both guns. But there's relatively few opportunities where you end up aiming at 2 different zombies that are at completely different directions, like I brought up. Hunks report. Attention, Mr. Alfred Ashford, head of the facility. Today at 16:32, I arrived successfully from the Umbrella transport base with the large-scale BOW capsule. Extreme care was taken during transport, and all 108 checkpoints were confirmed condition green in accordance with standard procedures. It is currently being stored in the freezer. There's one thing I don't understand. We're normally assigned to special missions. Why are we ordered to transport a frozen capsule this time? I understand this may be classified as top secret, but without knowledge of the contents, our safety could be at risk during the transport. This is especially important if the contents are potentially harmful. We would like to ask you to provide us with more information, should we be assigned similar missions in the future. I still remember the good old days that I spent out here in the military training center. Nothing's changed since then. We'll gear up for the next mission today at 2300. Umbrella Special Forces Unit, Hunk. I think that's the only other time he's brought up in a mainline Resident Evil, depending if you count the canonicity of Operation Raccoon City. And I forget if he's in any of the Umbrella Chronicles games. I think there might be a Hunk scenario. Still, nice to see him referenced, because even though he's a very... Hunk is this series' Boba Fett, is what I'm about to try to say here. in that he had very little impact in his original appearance, but he was badass enough in it until he just stopped existing that he was remembered. And I'm saying this as a Boba Fett fan, because I loved the young Boba Fett books when I was growing up. Book of Boba Fett was an alright show, but its pacing was too slow. And that's all I'll talk about for Star Wars in this video. With that, now we need to start the trek back to the prison, and a little strategy you can use to avoid the Cerberus in this area. The Cerberus that comes from this door I'm entering right now actively aggroes onto you from the start, but as you saw there, Cerberus can also climb the stairs just like the zombies can, but if you time yourself carefully, they can't attack you while they're climbing stairs, so you can just go down while you're going up. I think zombies can technically attack you on stairs, but it depends on how thin the stairs are. The stairs to the front of the palace are technically the widest stairs in the game, so there's a lot of... You can have a good berth for avoiding enemies there. Also, I might as well take care of those Bandersnatches now, because I do use, I think, every bit of ammo the M100Ps have by the end of the game. I just try to not use it at every single juncture. Now, the main reason you have to head to the prison at this point, even if you're not doing the hemostatic side quest, is in the room we got Hunk's report, there was a second eagle plate. And if you think back to our first trip to the prison, behind the guillotine, there was another blue shield-shaped hole in a door. That's where main progress is. So no matter what, you do have to go all this way to just head back to the starting area of the game. With that said, it is faster to go see Rodrigo first, which is the name of that guy. You only really find that out in a document that's right next to him. Because I don't think he ever mentions his name in the game, unless it's in the other version of the cutscene that happens later on. And at this point as well, more zombies have spawned in the prison, including in the graveyard area, so make sure you're not just charging in willy-nilly. But as you see, I have 3,500 handgun bullets, so if you're playing along, probably at this point, feel free to just use that as your main weapon for a lot of the time. It is most of the ammo that Claire gets, because while there are a lot of bowgun bolts, and a good amount of grenade launcher rounds if you look around in every single nook and cranny, including some that I don't go out of my way to get, there's plenty of ammo for a lot of the weapons in this game. And hey, it's also a pretty convenient place for a save point in case you're, like, saving more often than I like to. Feel free to do that, by the way, if you're playing along. I just do it because I want to try and get through the game with no saves.
What are you doing here? Hemostatic medicine. How kind of you. Thanks.
Here, let me help you with that.
Thanks, but I can take care of myself. Just go.
Keep it. It was a gift from my brother, but...
Thanks. Here, let me give you this in return. You might need it later on. Now go. Don't worry about me.
And for doing that side quest, we lose the lighter for now, but we end up gaining the lockpick, which allows us to open a lot of the simple locks located throughout this entire base. There's many I don't go out of my way to open, like back in the painting room in the military training facility, there's one you can open that has, I think, a first aid spray in it. You can open the shelf the acid rounds are on in the one room where we went through with Steve to take care of some zombies. The main reason I'm not going out of my way to do a lot of them is that a lot of them are just first aid sprays. And while that's a good healing item to have because it's a guaranteed full heal, I'm trying to use as few of those as possible throughout just because that is a rank degrader. I don't care too much about my rank in this game, but I still want to try and just use the herbs, you know? It's kind of a personal challenge I set for myself. Now, one thing I want to note, I love Rodrigo's voice, and if I recall, the voice cast for this game, some of the actors haven't done too much else. I think Claire is still Allison Court, the Mega Man X5 localizer or translator, I forget exactly which, who voiced her in Resident Evil 2. Alfred is voiced by Peter Oldring. who has been Michelangelo a couple times in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, was a couple of characters in the original Total Drama Island cast. Rodrigo's voice might be very familiar to Transformers fans, though, at least Transformers fans from the mid-90s, as he was the voice of Tigatron back in Beast Wars, who was honestly one of my favorite characters in that particular sublet of Transformers media, so hell yeah. With that said, we've made our way back here to this portion of the prison with the guillotines. Let's use that eagle plate. And run away from the door immediately, because there's like 2 or 3 zombies immediately behind it. You can tell whenever you take care of the zombies in a combat situation like this, by the way, when the music stops. It's a little bit... It makes the tension kind of go away a bit too fast for my tastes, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. I don't even know what the name of this sub-area of the prison is. I think I've always just called this the experiment area. You want to take care of every zombie in this particular hallway, though, because they respawn like 3 or 4 times in a very short span of time. But thankfully, once you're done with this area, you never need to come back here, so you don't need to worry about them past a certain point. Investigate this little hallway around here, by the way, for some handgun ammo. And I believe there's also a surprisingly well-hidden first aid spray in that cabinet right there. Bloodstained scalpels are scattered here. It appears that he's been anatomized. He's not breathing. This is where prisoners are taken to in that one note at the very start of the game. I think it's the first note we read. We got another one right here. Anatomist's note. There's a demon in my mind. I can't control the fierce impulses that demon sometimes drives me to act upon. It's a brutal ceremony. With the demon next to me, I enjoy watching people agonize in pain, screaming and convulsing repeatedly as they die. But Sir Alfred was kind enough to acknowledge me, as giving me the facilities, chemicals, and equipment necessary to study everything. I must never betray Sir Alfred's kindness. It is especially critical that no one discovers the sacred place that only he and I know about. I swear the basement of this medical building will be kept a secret. Of course, I keep the key to the sacred place with me at all times. Even if an outsider sees it, they'll never be able to tell that it's a key. I must remember that my life ends when I lose Sir Alfred's trust. Alright, so clearly some messed up shit was going on around here. An elaborate model of the human body. Something seems to be missing. I think that gives you a pretty good idea of what key we're looking for is around here. I wonder what'll happen when we go back into that room. But there's something more important for now in this room, as this is, I guess, meant to be the crematorium. As while there's a bunch of zombies in here, there's also a very important Duralumin case in here. And now we have the lockpick, we can open every single one of those in the game. And you're going to want to open every single one of those, as they, by and large, all have good stuff in them. It's the main reason you really want to go for the lockpick. Also in here, another red herb. And hey, like I mentioned, those are in surprisingly low numbers in this game. Although now that I think about it, I guess they're always sort of in low numbers compared to the amount of green herbs in a game. But I feel even compared to other classic Resident Evils, red herbs are in very low supply. I think the game they're the most common in is probably Resi 4. The lowest amount of herbs in that game is probably the yellow herbs, because you use those to boost your health. But in this Duralumin case is the handgun parts. This allows you to upgrade Claire's base handgun to the custom handgun, which increases its capacity to 20, I think, and gives it a 3-round burst that you can turn on and off. It doesn't upgrade the damage at all. Compared to the Matilda handgun upgrade in Resident Evil 2 that did largely the same thing, this is a lot more worth it. As one, the custom handgun only takes up 1 inventory slot as compared to the Matilda, which I believe took up 2 inventory slots. But it also, the Matilda in Resident Evil 2 burned through ammo too quickly in a game where I feel zombies had more health. But in this game where there's a lot more handgun ammo and zombies are pretty quick to kill even with the handgun, it's completely worth it. It's a pure upgrade in my eyes. And since you can turn off the burst fire at any point you want in the menu, you don't even need to worry about it. It's just worth having in that regard, just for the capacity upgrade, even. Gee, I wonder if we're about to have an event happen for having the heartbeat scene. The heartbeat is a lot like the ambience they play whenever Nemesis is about to show up in the original Resident Evil 3, in that it kind of ruins the surprise, but at least I kind of like the warning as well. I'm kind of torn. Sort of mini-boss is the Anatomist, and he's dead. Slightly healthier zombie, I guess, but make sure you check his body when he dies because his false eye falls out. You might remember there was a certain anatomical model in here that was lacking an eye. Guess what the key he was talking about in that document was. Now, down here, I'm not exactly sure how this room works. Because down here is his ceremony room, which is meant to be both an anatomical experiment room and, frankly, a torture room. Before we have that room, though, we have this little corridor with some bats in it. Equip the lighter to keep them off you, but you can also not aggro them by just walking through the first half, which I didn't do, so I took some bad damage there. Whoops. Oh, no. But this particular room is the one I was just talking about. There's some zombies in here to start, yes, but there's a door to the side that you cannot open yourself, I believe. And when you come back through this room on the way back out of this area, that door opens and a zombie comes through it. It doesn't always happen, though. Maybe it's related to not killing all the zombies in here. Maybe it's related to your actions in the next room. I've never been certain on what causes that door that was on screen just a moment ago to open up and let the zombie through. It's always been a bit of an anomaly to me, and I know the camera does shift when you're behind the chair to show the curtain. I don't think you can enter that curtain at all, either. The stone statue's holding a rusted sword. Take the rusted sword. The stone statue's holding a shield. And this stone statue's holding some armor. And this one's holding a helmet, which I believe are all the keys from the original Resident Evil, if memory serves. But we want to take the rusted sword. You can then replace the rusted sword if you want to, but we need this to progress. We need to just push the shield until it faces where the sword was. I'm not sure what your hint is for this, other than the fact it's kind of just try it until it works, I guess. And now we want to use the rusted sword on this Iron Maiden. But you want to be careful the moment you do that. Immediately back off as soon as the animation for using it starts playing. As that's going to open up and let a zombie out. We need to get behind that zombie, though, because as you can see just barely there in the corner, there is an item right where the zombie was standing. This is the piano roll. Back in the casino in the palace, there was an automatic playing piano that was missing its music roll. We need to take that back there, so we're more or less done in this portion of the prison. In fact, I think technically at this point you're done with the prison period. And there's the door opening. And I believe... Oh, actually, wait, no, this is a double twist. 2 zombies can spawn here that I didn't take care of. That's the zombie that was with the Anatomists. I didn't kill them, they spawned in here. But also the zombie with the rusted sword, if you didn't kill them, I believe can follow you into that room. Yeah, there's like an infinite supply of zombies there in that regard, because if you don't kill those 2, they spawn in that room. If you do kill them, another one just spawns there. It's weird. That room never made sense to me. We are done in this portion of the prison technically, but there is a couple of more things we can grab. Now, you might remember, back when we were first exploring the prison in parts 1 and 2, the room with the duplicator had a first aid spray and a couple of grenade round types. I think it was a... flame rounds, if you try to investigate the other ones, like BOW gas rounds. We still can't get through the metal detector properly with those items. But this particular hall goes behind the metal detectors to an area where there was a crate blocking off a door in the room where we had the second cutscene with Steve. So we can now do something about that and go grab those items by completely ignoring the metal detectors. Because now we can just push the crate out of the way. There's also an item box here, which if you're at this point in the game, you're probably running a little low on inventory space, so hey, take advantage of it when you have it. I do think this game, despite how long and backtracky its hallways tend to get, I do think they do a good job at pacing out where the item boxes are in the level design. Because by and large, every area has one or two within it. It's just that sometimes getting between each area is the long-winded part, not so much getting to a place where there is an item box. At least for now. I think later on in the game you get a little more starved for them because there's only like one or two in towards the endgame areas, but the endgame areas are also smaller. So I guess that's the compensation there. Also, this is where I go really hard on item box management. What I did in the classic Resident Evil playing, if my memory serves, was I would edit past this and then just show what my final inventory was. I did not think to do that while recording this, though. So, whoops. We can now open that journal in case we got in our first visit to the palace, though. So let's see what's within this one. And more bow gunpowder. Again, save this for as long as you can, as it's very effective at killing boss fights. It's really good at the boss at the very middle of the game and at the final boss in particular. Although I don't use it on the final boss. Alright, there we go. So push this crate out of the way, and we can now fully access the back end of the prison once and for all. And as you can tell, more zombies technically have spawned in there. I think that's just the one I left alive in there. I do like that you can see zombies just straight up moving in the background of some rooms. Classic Resident Evil always kind of implied that was happening, but you never really got to see it just because of the pre-rendered background elements. They kind of will continue doing what this game did moving forward, where there's sometimes more zombies you can see moving in the background. Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake especially love doing that, and sometimes they come say hi. Now, the BOW gas rounds, you really want to hold on to those, as there are only 3 of them in the game. They are straight up the exact same gas rounds that the gas launcher, I believe, is meant to be used in Code Veronica, not Code Veronica, Gaiden. They are especially meant to be used against the boss at the very middle of the game. So save those for that if you want to. I think I end up saving them until the end game, if even. I just never use them because I think I forget about them eventually. Whoops. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 7, we're heading back to the palace. See you guys then.